Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are popping the hood on Lab Program 5 to investigate the structural magic behind external CSS files. You know, if you've ever wondered how developers manage the design architecture across hundreds or even thousands of pages without it turning into a total tangled mess, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to walk through separating content from presentation, the three-step procedure, building the HTML foundation, styling with external CSS, viewing the final output, and we'll wrap up with understanding key CSS components.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, separating content from presentation.
According to the actual aim of our lab report, the #1 goal here is mastering this absolute golden rule. Separate content from presentation. Seriously, when you're dealing with large-scale projects, tangling your structure up with your styling is basically a recipe for a maintenance nightmare. But by decoupling the actual text from its visual aesthetic, we unlock this superpower where we can update a site's entire theme just by tweaking one single file. It's a real game changer.
This division of labor is totally crucial. Think of it like building a house. The HTML strictly handles the raw structural blueprint, the walls and the foundation. Meanwhile, CSS is dedicated entirely to the visual presentation, the paint, the furniture, all the aesthetic choices. Keeping this strict boundary keeps our codebase highly organized, completely prevents code bloat, and honestly makes version control vastly easier to manage down the road.
Moving right along to Section 2, the three-step procedure.
Let's actually review the workflow procedure for this lab. It is a surprisingly elegant three-step process. Step 1, you draft your structural markup and save it as an s.html file. Step 2, you isolate all your styling rules over in a separate .css file, and Step 3, just launch that HTML file in any standard web browser to render the combined output. That's the whole shebang. No heavy, complicated software required, just pure text-based architecture.
Okay, let's get our hands dirty in Section 3, building the HTML foundation.
Looking closely at our structural foundation here, the most interesting takeaway is actually what's missing. There is absolutely zero inline styling. Nothing. We just have our standard document declaration, a heading, a simple paragraph, and a targeted div container with a box class. It is pure, unadorned structural data that is completely ready to be hooked up to our style sheet.
In that integration, it relies entirely on the link tag, right there within the HTML head section. This specific line, link rel equals style sheet, href equals style.css, is the absolute crucial bridge. It acts as the tether, pulling the external presentation rules right into our raw content, basically telling the browser exactly where to find the visual map.
Now for the really fun part, Section 4, styling with external CSS.
Over in our external style sheet, this is where we get to apply our global and element-specific rules. We're setting a light gray background for the entire body, targeting that H1 heading to make it blue and center-aligned, and boosting the paragraph visibility by making it green with an 18-pixel font size. And the beauty is, because these rules live here, if we ever want to modify the site's entire color scheme later on, we only have to edit these few lines. So efficient.
Next up, we style that specific box class we assigned earlier to our div. We're restricting the width to 300 pixels, adding 15 pixels of internal padding, and throwing on a 2-pixel solid black border. Setting that background to a crisp white guarantees this specific container is going to visually pop right off that global light gray body background.
All right, time for the big reveal. Section 5, viewing the final output. And bam, this brilliantly illustrates the final rendered result. You can see how those external rules successfully injected right into the HTML structure. We've got the light gray global background, that blue center-aligned header we talked about, the scaled green text, and of course, our precisely constrained white div box with its solid black border. The browser executed that separation of concerns flawlessly.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, understanding key CSS components.
Formalizing our observations from the lab, everything really boils down to 4 key components. Selectors are what allow us to target specific HTML elements. Properties define the actual style characteristics we want to modify, while values dictate the exact settings applied to those properties. And finally, utilizing a class selector gives us the ultimate flexibility to apply these modular styles to literally any element that shares that specific identifier.
Which brings us to the ultimate core observation of Lab 5, the absolute power of the external style sheet.
By housing all your selectors, properties, and values in an isolated .css file, your visual styling is entirely 100% removed from the structural HTML. The result? A code base that is modular, exceptionally clean, and highly scalable as your project grows.
Based on our initial aim, I think we can confidently declare this lab a total success. We successfully linked an HTML document to an external style sheet to precisely control its presentation. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Now that you hold the keys to separating content from presentation, how are you going to use external style sheets to optimize the architecture of your next major web project? Think about the possibilities. Get out there, keep building, and we will catch you on the next explainer.